So next we will hear from Natalie Harizi, who is a San Francisco, California-based teacher and an upcoming candidate for the California Insurance Commissioner in the 2018 elections. Natalie attended the People's Congress of Resistance inaugural event and has been working on creative ways to utilize the manifesto of the People's Congress of Resistance. So please welcome Natalie.
Hi, everyone. So I think they're pulling up the basics of my presentation right now. Can we go to the first slide? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the educational campaign, and I'm based in San Francisco, where we've had one sort of reading group come together, and we have two more planned upcoming, and we're working on a series of them going to different places around the Bay Area, which has 9 counties. So it's a real range of places, and hopefully what I'm about to present is really useful for people in thinking about how to have these reading groups, which are the basis for building an education campaign. The great thing is the manifesto itself, which if you go to the next slide, you can reach the link for it. The manifesto itself is great material to be meeting with people and reading. And we're just gonna look through it kind of briefly, but the first thing to do in preparing to carry out one of these events and really hold a group is to know your material. And I would say read it. The link that's there, congressofresistance.org, has a digital version you can also download, and a link will be sent to order copies. I'll talk about that in a second, but know the material. So read all the way through it, think about kind of what it means to read through this project, this idea for, as Brian said, for a totally different kind of society, one that actually represents the people and what they need. And if we could go back to the slides that I'm going to go through are really just how to think this through. What do you kind of consider as you're pulling together an event? And I'd say after you know the material, the first thing is to find a location and set the date and time. And that location is very, very flexible. You can think about your own home. And if you're going to make this public, then you want to make sure that you're comfortable with people coming to your home. But there's lots of other options. So the one in San Jose we had was at a cafe on campus. A cafe works great. Just consider the space, because you're not going to be renting it or anything like that. You want to have a place where you can meet as a group, where it's not too noisy and it's accessible to people you're inviting. You don't want to be too far out of range for public transportation or other ways that people might be getting there. Local libraries often have free or low-cost rooms, but they also have many communal spaces that you can meet in. And librarians, I am one, so saying this, I'm speaking for them. Librarians love having more people come to the library and use the space. Local progressive churches, the Peace and Justice Center, or other places. Just consider what might work best for you. You can go to the next slide. Once you have your location and your date, you do want to promote it. And I think this is key, but if you feel like any of these points are an obstacle, don't let it stop you. So if you don't know how to create a Facebook event, you can go on the congressofresistance.org. We have tutorials for you. You can contact people. We can help you with that. But you do want to promote the idea. Text your closest friends, the people you think will be interested. Make a poster. Canva.com, I am not an advertiser for Canva.com, but I do use it. I think it's useful because I don't have the skills to make things, but I make flyers all the time for the work I do in the library and also for the other stuff that I'm doing as an activist. And it's super easy. And then you can just print it and put it on the location. Or if you're having a library, they always have boards and stuff to put stuff up at. Think about a local activist group that might help you promote it or might be interested in participating. Go to the next slide. So once you have the location and you know you're going to do it and you're promoting it, you do want to prepare. The first thing is to make sure you do have copies of the manifesto. You can download them, as I said, from congressofresistance.org. Tomorrow, all participants will be receiving a link to order them. So if you want a nicely printed copy, you can order copies. You could also really consider everyone having digital access. And I think people's access is variable, so you don't want to assume that people will have that. But I think if you know the group that's coming, for instance, if you're having it on a campus and everyone's a teacher and you're in a district that's very digital focused, you could do it, completely digitally. Bring with you a way for people to sign up. Even, the best thing is to print up a nice sign-up sheet, but do make sure that when people come, you have a way of contacting them afterwards and interacting with them, because the educational campaign is a place to build from and to really build the People's Congress. And then think about follow-up. Is there anything that you want to do after this that might be considered that you could bring people to, or that you're having an event, or even just having that discussion? Just think that through before you have the group. And I guess that's the third and fourth bullet. Could you go to the next slide? Thank you. When you do sit down, this is a process of collective education. That's how I like to think about the groups. It's not a classroom. It's not a formal sort of organized class meeting, but we're all educating ourselves together and building in this process. It's really important to do introductions and give people a chance to present who they are, but not require them to say too much or anything like that, but just so we can all meet each other. Reading, I just want to make a few recommendations in terms of how you think through the reading. The material is all there. You don't need to prepare anything additionally. The manifesto is a great tool for reading together. It's accessible, it's interesting, it brings up a lot of ideas and discussion. So do think about not sort of forcing the reading, but giving time to discuss, to just ask questions, to make comments and see where that goes, and then come back to the reading. I'm using some teacher language in here, but the right to pass, I think, is a very important part of reading as a group. If people don't feel comfortable reading, they shouldn't feel pressure to. But everyone should also, get an opportunity to read if they'd like. If you do end up meeting in a large group, consider how to break into smaller groups. That encourages discussion. People tend to talk a lot less in a larger group, and people who are more comfortable in that group tend to talk more. And that's a smaller percentage of the people. So if there's any way to break into smaller groups, that's a great thing to consider as you're reading through this. But if you do that, come back to a larger group so that you can continue the discussion in different ways as well. The other 2 points I wanted to make in regards to this is something we call step up, step back in the classroom, but I think it can be called many different things and just discussed. But I think it's an important point to make when you're educating yourselves and each other and you're in this process of collective education. And it means that give other people a chance to talk and think about who's talking too much, who hasn't gotten a chance to talk, and open up the spaces for people to participate. And don't feel shy about telling someone, okay, you have spoken quite a bit. We need to hear from this person or that person, or we want to give space to people to participate. So really consider that in the way that you set up the educational space. And then the role of the facilitator. I think it's really important as a facilitator to not be as concentrated on your own ideas or how much, getting your sort of own voice in there, and be thinking about the group and the reading and the political point that we're all coming together for, and making sure that the group as a collective kind of stays on task and moves forward in the reading, in the discussion, and in focusing on the ideas of building a society for the many, and just kind of considering that role and taking on that role, or training yourselves and other people around you to do that. Could you go to the next slide, please? The last points about the reading groups is once it's over, it's really, really helpful in this process, especially if you're thinking of having a follow-up event, or maybe you're in an area where you could have multiple reading groups in different places. Think about what went well and what you would have done differently next time. And it's an objective process. It's not sort of a personal criticism or anything like that. It's just thinking about, how could we have done this better? Was the location successful, or do we need to find a different type of location? Did people come because they got a poster, or did they only see it on the internet? Is there some, how did the promotion go? And just think through what worked well in terms of the discussion itself, and building that equity among people, among the participants, in terms of who's talking, how they're talking, how they're getting a chance to be part of the discussion and really build the Congress of Resistance. And then really do follow up with people. A great way to do that is the next day to send a thank you to everyone for coming, sort of short evaluation and appreciation, but also to think about who attended and anyone who could become a co-organizer or work with you closely in building various actions and movements, or even more reading groups. Try and connect with those people really directly and build some sort of relationship with them for future organizing. And then that's all I really had to say. Just that I think I just went over in that like 5-minute period quite a bit of information. The key I think that we found here is to do it, to just move forward and try and find a spot and have people come together. And we found that when people do read through the manifesto together, they then really have a great discussion and do feel inspired to do more and come together again. And maybe in the question answer period, that'll come out a little bit more.